We're Team Green. My name is Yuan.
I'm Zori.
I'm Jiqiang. I'm Junrong.
Our country is Denmark, a rich European country. For this presentation, we will discuss the impact of climate change to Denmark in different fields, such as vulnerabilities, opportunities, history of country energies, international treaty involved in climate change, and recommendations for the future.
Vulnerability 1. Increase in sea level. The hazard includes rising sea level in mainland Denmark, and the exposure is that with climate change comes the inevitable aspect of sea level rising and increased precipitation. Denmark is currently sitting at roughly 100 feet above sea level. For sensitivity, in the economic dimension, there will be a decrease in industrial estates and residential land. In the cultural dimension, there will be negative implications on human cities and coastal ecology. Rising sea level will cause increased erosions and flooding of coasts, tidal areas, and river valleys. As for ecological dimension, sea level rise might make certain habitats fragile and put certain species at a higher risk of extinction. Vulnerability 2. Storm surges. Evidence shows climate change will amplify chance of storm surges. For exposure, an increase in the setup of surf storm surges is assumed due to higher wind velocities result in higher and longer waves. To protect low-lying land against flooding and storm surge, dikes and other permanent installations have been built along about 1,800 kilometers of coastlines. As for sensitivity, in the economic dimension, with storm surges increase, it would affect agriculture. These leads to loss of crops and ecological environment. In the economic dimension, storms can cause the damage of infrastructure to constructions and housing. This would have negatively impact the economy. As for cultural dimension, there are many buildings stands up to 100 years or more in Denmark. Climate change would threaten those historical town and building through the storm damages. Vulnerability 3. Water scarcity. Drinkable water is the most important thing for human development, livelihood, agriculture, and industry. Water scarcity will make human and animals not able to strive, and crops will not grow well. As for exposure, Denmark declared being almost entirely affected by water scarcity. Abstraction exceeds a sustainable recharge by up to 300% around Copenhagen and other large towns, and that irrigation is dominant in western Jutland and exceeds sustainable recharge by up to 70%. For sensitivity, in the ecological dimension, water scarcity will result in exploitation of drinkable water, which is likely to lead to destroyed ground surface. In the cultural dimension, water scarcity will make trouble for people's life and industry, which may threaten people's original life pattern. As for economic dimension, water scarcity is able to enhance price of water, which could lead to the loss of economic equilibrium. Vulnerability 4. Precipitation. Climate change causes extreme precipitation in Denmark. With extreme precipitation, the groundwater level is higher than before in Denmark. As for sensitivity, in the economic dimension, road regulations and rail standards must be harmonized with expected climate change, which includes the cost but safety. In the ecological dimension, high precipitation causes debris flow more frequently and flooding. As for social dimension, bad weather increases the chance of traffic accidents. Vulnerability 5. Pest and disease. Higher temperatures and increased storm risk will lead to new pests or for propagation of existing known pests. on the growth of trees, regenerating dynamics, and stability, a changed climate may also pave the way for introduction of new pests or for propagation of existing known pests, which, possibly in combination with weakened vegetation, may cause problems relating to forest health and stability. For sensitivity in economic dimension, the Denmark government should spend more money dealing with the disease problems and new medicine. In ecological dimension, the new species of pests will damage the whole ecological equilibrium. As for a social dimension, the new disease will increase death rate and cause a panic in society.
Denmark also has some opportunities when faced with the climate change. The first one is to increase in job opportunities. Greenland's usable natural resources are revealed due to meltdown of glacier. So many advanced minerals projects are easily found. According to the economic dimension, companies are eager to extract natural resources. Large oil companies drill for oil, and new shipping routes and cruise ships increase shipping traffic through Greenland waters. For the environmental dimension, due to the lack of environmental regulation from Denmark, the country overseeing the project plans for the mine continue to move forward, despite the harmful effect it would have on the environment and the surrounding community. For the cultural dimension, a proposal for a new combined super harbor and international airport outside the capital of Greenland, Nuuk, as well as sustainable type of dwelling with a new Arctic architecture style based on Greenland values and traditions, and a Greenlandic city that is designed to embrace the world without losing its identity. The second opportunity is about innovative engineering. Denmark is turning climate change into an opportunity and leading the way in preparing for a water-scarce future. The water supply in Denmark is decentralized to the local level. For the opportunity of Denmark climate change, Denmark developed engineering. For the prospect, Danish economy has grown by 80% since 1980, while energy consumption stayed the same and water consumption dropped by 40%. A new national agreement in 2012 aims for a fully functioning green economy by 2050. In different dimensions, to functioning innovative engineering could increase cost. However, it could reduce the projected impact of climate change. It can also be used to create jobs and raise exports as part of its green growth strategy. Government intervention helped their industry make technological breakthroughs and reduce its ecological footprint. Melting ice results in new discovered land is the third opportunity. Global warming is an aspect of climate change, which results in melting ice. Upon the ice is melting, the covered land will be discovered. And because of it, farmers can now plant vegetables that a few decades ago would have never survived and raise their fatter livestock. For the prospect, tourism can bring a lot of people and money, which could be used to do research on new technology about how to modify climate change. Also, new land has lots of applications such as agriculture development, building factory, military base, and so on. The fourth one is about agricultural production. Global warming also affects Denmark. However, higher temperature offers a longer growing season, which is expected to allow for the introduction of new crops and increased yields meaning greater productivity in agriculture in Denmark. The yield level of many agricultural crops will be increased by 10 to 15% up to 2050. In different dimensions, the whole agricultural production will increase. However, there will probably also be increased cost for fertilizers. An increasing restriction on use of fertilizers and pesticides out of concern for natural and the Arctic environment. Citizens can get more food and the export will increase. The fifth opportunity is about the green economy. Denmark can develop a green economy and use renewable energy resources. It will be in a position to ensure the development of a green economy and economic growth and prepare for a future in which all energy needs are covered by renewable energy sources. In the coming years, worldwide energy demand is expected to keep growing. By investing in green transformation, we can turn Denmark into a leader in environmentally friendly technologies. If we manage to get Danish companies to embrace this opportunity, all of society will end up benefiting. So, for economic dimension, developing green economy and renewable energy resources will cost a lot of money and manpower, but it can replace the fossil fuel, which means can reduce the pollutions. For the ecological dimension, people may develop new natural resources and create a new ecological cycle. For the social dimension, to develop a green economy and renewable energy may offer new jobs for people.
Denmark economy. Denmark is one of Europe's most productive agricultural countries, and more than 60% of the island is used for agriculture. During global imperialism, Denmark, Norway acquired some islands, and all of the islands' economies were relied on sugar. Besides, Denmark also traded the agricultural productions with East Asia areas such as China. Prior to Industrial Revolution, there were about 950 watermills and 650 windmills across the country, and most were used to mill grain. After Industrial Revolution, industry has played a major role in the development of the welfare state. During the first Industrial Revolution around 1770, technology advance led to the machine and of the industrial. The introduction of foreigners, machine shop, and steam energy, as well as the use of cotton, corn, and iron. The development were copied in Denmark, and machine factories were built in Brande. Around 1840, factories began to appear, and soon more were working industrial jobs than in agriculture. Since the Industrial Revolution, human activities have contributed to climate change by adding carbon dioxide and other heat-trapping gas to the atmosphere. History of fossil fuel burning in Denmark. In 1972, 92% of Denmark's energy consumption came from import oil. The 1973 oil crisis forced Denmark to change its energy policy. In 1978, corn contributed 18% and the wind contribute was made, along with the creation of the wind industry. The 1979 energy crisis pushed further change, and in 1984 the North Sea natural gas project began. The North Sea production of oil and gas made Denmark self-sufficient in 1997, peaking in 2005 and decreased below self by 2017. The table shows fossil fuel energy consumptions since 1960 and to 2014. the data has been decreasing. In Denmark, greenhouse gas emissions decreased by between 17 and 25% between 1990 and 2014. In 1960s, Denmark carbon dioxide emission is 29,700 tons per capita in 1996. The date peaked in 1996 is 72,100 tons per capita, and in 2014 the carbon dioxide emission is 38,067 per cartons. Denmark and Finland are the two top of large emission countries in northern countries. It's because the fossil fuel power plant in Denmark and Finland, when Norway and Sweden has a supplies of hydro and nuclear generation electricity. Some of Denmark and Finland electricity demand can be covered by import from the former countries, and some fossil fuel plants can stop operation. Deforestation and forest degradation. Forestation and forest degradation in Denmark has a long history with more than 1,000 years. Desert and downs are the two major forms of forest degradation. Tree cutting and increasing storms together treating forestation. Deforestation was completed around AD 1631. The reduction of the deforestation and degradation rate will lead to only mining green in total carbon stock in times 2 due to the low deforestation rate. Wood values are covered in carbon storm by the same method as mentioned for carbon stock in 1990. The resulting net seeking for carbon dioxide in forest exceeding in 1990 was 916 kilograms carbon dioxide for the period during 1990 and 1999. The development of industrial forest plantation for pump for ecological service and for protection for nature forest is circumstant to slowing deforestation. Denmark colonialism Greenland in 1914. Greenland is located with the Arctic Circle. The weather is cold and there is a small amount of tree and green field. The forest cover are not uniformly disturbed. Less than 5% of the land in Greenland, which have naturally low forest cover. On the other hand, like UK and Australia, they have decreased forest cover because of deforestation centuries ago. Therefore, between 1990 to 2010, the annual change rate is 0 in Greenland. Lifestyles adapt to climate change impact. During 1970 to 2009, Denmark achieved absolute decoupling of GDP from carbon dioxide emission and relative decoupling from energy use. During this period, 1% grow in GDP connect with 0.4 decrease of carbon dioxide emission and 0.3% increasing in energy use. Denmark decoupling its economy by using renewable energy and natural gas instead of coal and oil, and increase energy efficiency through district heating and CHP. Total population in Greenland is 56,196, and Denmark is 569,750. They have big different amount of population, different domestic lifestyles, causing carbon dioxide emission to affect climate change. According to the data, in 2001, Denmark ranks 64 and Greenland ranks 183 in carbon dioxide emission from the consumption of energy. Greenland 2010 per person emission is 9.6 tons and Denmark is 8.3 tons per person emissions. Lifestyles in Greenland cost more carbon dioxide emissions than Denmark. Greenland total carbon usage is increasing through 1956 to 2016. Liquid carbon cost 150,000 metric of carbon in 2016. For the carbon footprint, reduce driving cars and choose public transportation to go outside, save energy such as electricity, water, and gases, eat less meat, plant more trees, and use recycled items are all the best way to decrease the carbon footprint.
These are the facts and histories regarding to UNFCCC and Kyoto in Denmark. Denmark joined UNFCCC in June 9, 1992, and the agreements dated by UNFCCC entered into force in March 21, 1994. The agreements include promoting sustainable ways on handling resources, cooperate in preparation of adapting climate change and its impacts. Later on signed the Kyoto Protocol in April 29, 1998, but unlike its earlier decisions, the agreement in Kyoto Protocol was entered into force after 7 years. February 16, 2005, agreements including reducing carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gas emissions. In December 2009, host the 15th section of conference of UNFCCC, where they raised climate change policy to the highest political levels, where they focused on what and how to regulate organizations and corporations, including the famous settings of limiting the increasing global temperatures for 2 Celsius above pre-industrial levels. Recently, they signed the Paris Agreement in April 22, 2016. The agreements were entered into force in December 1, 2016. The agreement focused on cooperation between participants and techniques of reduction in rising temperature. Denmark has engaged in politics in the ways that it has and continues to do so because climate change is a big problem for all humans, and Denmark is one of the major countries in the world who attach great importance to the management of climate problems. The rapid of Denmark's economy largely depends on fossil fuels, but Denmark works as an environmental leader in pursuit of stopping fossil fuel use. There are some Denmark politicians, for example, after signing the Paris Agreement, Denmark commits to become 100% independent of fossil fuels by 2050. Already 40% of electricity generation is produced from renewable energy sources. Denmark also cuts greenhouse gas emissions to limit global warming after signing UNFCCC and Kyoto Protocol. Since 1990s, greenhouse gas emissions in Denmark has fallen 14%, although its targets for the Kyoto Protocol up to 2012 was 21%. It is still a big success. Besides, it also targets to reduce 23% before 2035. The Paris Agreement guiding the Danish to fight against climate change mitigation and adaptations in developing countries helps. Since December 2015, Denmark has contributed 7.5 billion supports the fight against climate change, including 2 billion from the climate envelope. This policy enhancing the need for transition towards more sustainable solutions and evidence that adaptation to climate change is urgently needed, especially for the developing countries. Women are one of the vulnerable populations to climate change in Denmark. In some small communities in Greenland, men used to hunt to supply their family. Women stayed with children and took care of animals. However, due to climate change, hunting has become a difficult thing. Some kinds of animals can no longer live in extreme weather. Women have to do full-time jobs or part-time jobs. Men had nothing to do and drinking the bird, which forms alcoholism. Women have to supply the whole families and suffer more pressures. For the tribune, people within influence shows benefit of an equal society and involve men by showing that inequalities means that they lose out to change the stereotype. The other vulnerable populations, indigenous people. Climate change results in decreasing sea levels, animals immigration, increased fire in forests, and reducing rainfall, threats of water and food security which affect indigenous people's lifestyle and change their farming living patterns. For the treatment, strategies to deal with climate change are diversified, such as doing agriculture in higher altitudes when mountain glaciers melt and use animals for lowering requirement of food.
The first recommendation for Denmark is to reduce GHG emission. GHG means greenhouse gas. There are three mitigations. The first one is to reduce using fossil energy sources such as gas, coal, and oil, and switch to use renewable energy and clean coal technology. The second one is to capture waste greenhouse gas such as methane generating pit. The third one is to create storage such as forest management and land use to sequestrate carbon dioxide. There are also three adaptations. The first one is to allow and encourage people to pursue climate-friendly strategies. The second one is to use CDM and JI from Kyoto Protocol to meet the reduction commitment. The third one is that Danish government will cooperate directly and indirectly with partner countries for reducing greenhouse gas emission. The second recommendation is bicycle strategy. There are four mitigations. The first one is cargo bike parking. Build excellent parking facilities for cargo bikes outside of home, institutions, and shops. The second one is to pilot projects for cargo bike parking will be replaced by standard solution developed in collaborations with business, homeowner associations, and developers. The third one is that the street will transform from being static to being dynamic. LED lights in the asphalt signal with transport from has priority and win. The fourth one is that new bike sharing system, an integral part of the public transport system in the capital region and enjoys an equal footing with bus, trains, and metro. Here are financial cost analysis and social analysis for recommendation 2. Financial cost analysis is that people are only willing to accept cycling as long as it's affordable and fun. Danish government spent around 2 million USD on awarding people on cycling to work and to school. That also helped on building bikeable roads and setting biking stops. In addition, with financial spending on bikeable roads, the government fund can be decreased on the tourism portion, along with the transportation for tourists. The social analysis is that biking itself is a special culture to Danish people, although they no longer bike as much as they used to. Encouragement and advertisement with governmental support would restore biking back to Danish people and their daily life. The process of restoration in biking culture may take time. Funds were the strongest attraction to Danish people besides having biking culture restored. The first vulnerable group is indigenous people. Due to climate change, renewable energy is recommended to use, and the increased demand for renewable energy using wind and solar power could make tribal lands an important resource for such energy, replacing fossil fuel derived energy and limiting greenhouse gas emissions. In Denmark, lots of plains could provide a tremendous wind resource, and its development could help to reduce greenhouse gas emission, which means indigenous people can make a great contribution to climate change. The second vulnerable group is poor people. Reductions in emissions of greenhouse gas would delay and reduce damage caused by climate change. Many disasters like flood, droughts will decrease, which is helpful for poor people. Another vulnerable group is women in some small communities of Greenland. With reducing greenhouse gas emission, the global temperature will decrease and extreme weather will reduce. More animals can survive, so that women in Greenland can place more focus on raising children and take care of animals instead of helping men to hunt and suffer more pressure. As we know that Denmark is the first generation, for the three games we learned that the investment on future is more important on investment on infrastructure for now.